Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another Last 5 wrap-up. This time we are going to be talking about romances, and I think I have everything from contemporary to romantic suspense to historical romantic suspense, maybe? So let's get to it. There are some very familiar faces on this list as well as some new to me authors, and we're going to talk about them. The first book I'm going to talk about is The Bait by N.R. Walker.
I mean the team. The team is what we're going to be talking about first, not The Bait. The Bait is the second book in this series. This is the third one.
Which is her most recent release and is part of the Milvus Files series. It is the third book in the Milvus Files, and we are moving away from our first couple into a couple that we were introduced to in a previous book, and this time we are following Rhett and Jay. So the Milvus Files really looks at spies and covert operatives, and in this case we are following one of the covert groups that Rhett is the commanding officer for. He is in a committed relationship with Jay before the book begins, and pretty much everyone in the team knows about it. And their relationship has a really interesting dynamic because Rhett is reserved and stoic and kind of very much the epitome of the leader of the group, and Jay is just a bundle of excitable joy, really. Like, he just exudes confidence and happiness and is able to find the light in any situation. In this book, Rhett's team is joined by 2 new members, which is always a precarious time because one, these team members have been added by the higher ups, so there has been like literally no consultation with Rhett and his team. And so that always makes people wary, because when you are literally going into dangerous areas and your work is quite literally the spy game, you want to know exactly who it is that you're working with. So that sort of unsettles things for a while, and then they are thrown into a country where they probably shouldn't be, dealing with a situation that they really should not be dealing with at all. Things get real and very tense very, very quickly. They are dealing with potential global terrorism. They need to figure out very quickly who they trust and who they can go to for help, and it turns out that maybe their headquarters is not who they can trust in this instance. And maybe they might need to go around them and rely on some allies who they do actually know, which links it back into previous stories where we get a lot of Harry and Asher and many, many side characters who we have met before and just absolutely adore. So I love this series. I'm really glad that a new book came out and that I got to read it very early in the month because N.R. Walker is my happy place. Then I read Getting Friendly by Saxon James, which is part of the Never Just Friends series, which is one of the series that I was trying to read down. And this is a queer contemporary romance set in a very small town. So we have Leon, who owns his own construction building company business, and he is used to running a very small team and doing the majority of the work on his own, but he has expanded now and he really needs an apprentice. He really needs someone to come on board because he needs more help. Enter Augie, who is his rival business's son. Augie is an absolute disaster on a construction site. It is actually hilarious how many incidences happen. However, that said, Augie has this absolute heart of gold. He is so precious and he wants to do well. He has never been able to step out of his dad's shadow. His dad wants him to earn his way, but his dad doesn't trust him on a construction site, which turns out rightly so. But his dad also won't help him to get into the business, and he wants him to figure that out on his own. And so Augie ends up, going for this job. Leon recognizes in him that this is a guy who is trying to build his life, and he's also vaguely attracted to him, which he goes is not a good position to be in as a boss, but is what helps him to sort of not necessarily overlook, but to understand sort of when things happen on the job site that probably shouldn't. He's willing to give Augie more than one chance to prove himself. And as it turns out, while Augie is a disaster when it comes to the physical side of that business, he has learned everything about running a business. He is incredibly good at the books. He's incredibly good at business smarts. And there is a scene where Leon gets quite sick and Augie is in caretaking mode and actually continues to run the business the way that Leon needs it to be run in his absence. Because when Leon, he's sick for days, and when he finally surfaces and is well enough to even think about it, he's panicked because there were meetings and there were deadlines and things like that, and he finds out that Augie has just managed all of it. And I loved that as a character dynamic because we're set up to think, okay, well, this is just going to end horribly badly. Like, Augie's obviously not meant to be for this business, but he is. And it's a great way of showing that Leon needs to let people help him, and Augie proves to him without having to tell him, no, I can do that, I can do this. He actually shows him, I can manage this and it's okay. Like, things will be okay when you let people help you. And I loved that dynamic. So it was really fun. It was the final full-length novel. I did read a novella, which will be reviewed in the Last 5 Novellas video, but it means I finished the series and I really enjoyed it. I think they were just really fun, queer, contemporary romances. Then I finally went back and finished reading Totally Ducked by Becca Jackson, which was one of the books that I picked up in a tri-chapter video and meant to come back to ages ago. It's a sports romance, and we're following a character whose nickname is Ducky. He is a sports reporter. He was assigned to report on the NHL. However, he got caught in a compromising position with the spouse of a player, and so his boss cracked it and basically sidelined him and has sent him to cover Banana Ball, and he is very unhappy with this. The Banana Ball League is expanding, they've got 2 new teams, and what they're doing to help promote the sport is embed a bunch of journalists with the 2 teams to follow them around for their first season and to promote the sport. So Ducky is on that duty and he is not pleased initially. And to top it all off, he finds out that Ian, who is the reporter who broke the story of Ducky having an affair with one of the players' spouses, is one of the reporters that he is embedded with. And Ian has always been relegated to the gossip section and has had to write pieces that he doesn't necessarily agree with because it's his job. And he's trying to break into sports journalism and he sees this as his big opportunity. He doesn't even know that it was Ducky he was writing about. But eventually that does come out and they have to clear the air about it. And as they spend more time together and get to know each other and get to understand each other's perspective, they form a really lovely friendship and then a relationship. A couple of other things that I really loved about this story. One, Ducky used to play baseball. He had plans of going pro, but he was never actually able to do it. And throughout the beginning of the season with Banana Ball, they have all those fun dance moves and things like that. They actually try and incorporate the reporters as much as they can into some of those performances initially because they're part of the team. And so Ducky gets really involved in it. And then one of the players on one of the teams is injured in the middle of the season. And so Ducky kind of steps in for the choreographed parts, and then eventually the team realizes that he can play, and he ends up playing as much as he is writing about the sport. Alongside that, Ducky's nickname comes about from the fact that he has a habit of hiding rubber duck toys all over the place. And at the start of the book, just as he's being embedded, his brother sends him a box full of rubber ducks that throughout the course of the book he is hiding in places. And that's one of the things that he and Ian bond over, because Ian starts finding these ducks and he eventually makes the connection that it's Ducky who's leaving them around the place. Because I should say, most people don't know that Ducky's nickname is Ducky. I should check and see if I actually wrote down what his name was. His name is Brandon. So most people know him as Brandon, but his nickname is Ducky. And so eventually they also connect over that. And it's really funny because then Ian starts keeping the ducks. Like, he finds them and he ends up with this massive collection of them. And I just love that. Like, it made me so happy. It brought so much joy to my face. And I am going to meet Becca Jackson at Rare later in the year, so I'm glad that I finally read this one. Then I read When Death Meets the Devil by L.J. Hayward, which is the first book in a series, and this one is an romantic suspense story. So Jack, who is one of our main characters, works for the Australian Met Estate. He is a former SAS soldier. He is deep undercover and his cover is blown and he is about to be tortured by the guy that he has been embedded in his group with when he's saved by a gun for hire Ethan. This book is told in a dual timeline. We keep getting flashbacks to the past where Ethan and Jack are on the run trying to survive after this event, and also the present day where Jack is back working for his employer. He's kind of been sidelined since he escaped and his boss doesn't really trust him, so he hasn't really worked out in the field. He's been stuck in the office and he's going stir crazy. On the day that he's just had enough, Ethan, who is a known assassin, walks into the building of an Australian intelligence agency to speak to Jack. And this sets off a whole chain of events that is just bananas and bonkers, and I really enjoyed it. I got so invested in the story. I will continue the series at some point. I don't quite know when. I was very invested. I wanted to know exactly what happened between these two characters because that's slowly revealed as you're alternating chapters, and I was deeply hooked, very much so. And the story does end on an HFN. I'm kind of curious to see how it continues because the way that they live their lives is there's some things going on there that are going to make it really difficult for them to get a true HEA and be happy and satisfied, and I want to see it. I want to read it, I want to find it out. And then the last one I'm going to talk about is another book that I read because the author is going to Rare, and this is A Summer of Smoke and Sin, which is an gaslamp mystery romance. So it is historical. It's about a detective who is investigating women who are being murdered and having photos taken of them post-death and shared around the community, and obviously that is not cool. So it does deal with some quite heavy themes. There's murder, gore, blood, there's SA. And in order to do this, Nathaniel, who is our detective, enlists the help of a disgraced former soldier who now owns a gentleman's club for gentlemen of certain proclivities. And Jericho also happens to be possessed by a succubus, and he is also letting the succubus inside him kill people who are not good people. But he can't reveal that initially to Nathaniel because obviously Nathaniel is a police officer. We first meet Jericho when he wakes up in bed next to the dead body of a nobleman's son who he slept with, but the succubus took over. And she is awesome. She is one of my favorite characters in this whole book. And I forget what her name is. Oh God, did I write it down? Eulalia is the succubus. She plays a really important part in figuring out who is responsible for the assault and murder of the women, and also punishing the person responsible. He wakes up with this dead body and he's so annoyed because if he goes for too long without feeding Eulalia, she can take over his body. It's kind of like a deal with the devil situation, except you figure out later on that she's not a devil. As they're investigating, things get really complex, and because Jericho is not held in high esteem within London society, things begin to be pinned on him, and so it's up to Nathaniel to prove that Jericho is not responsible for what people think is going on. And I loved it. I'm always very hesitant about historical settings, but this one just was doing so many fun, interesting things with the characters, and I had a great time. I am definitely going to be coming back to TJ Nichols' books. I have another one that I'm going to talk about in the novella wrap-up. Like, I've read two very different stories from this author, and I'm very curious to read some more because I found them both really easy to read and highly enjoyable. And so those are my last 5 romance books. In the comments, I'd love to know, have you read any of them? Are you planning on picking any of them up? Feel free to let me know down below. If you've got any recommendations, also feel free to leave those in the comments, or feel free to leave me a duck emoji to let me know that you're here. I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.